Hello viewers, here is a Sony computer. This is a Sony Vaio computer, and this is a really kind of an unusual model. It looks very much like a television set, but it is in fact an all-in-one computer. It's from the Windows Vista era. It features a Core 2 Duo chip and NVIDIA graphics. And it also has a CD/DVD drive which can play Blu-ray discs. And it's Dolna certified. I'm not really sure what that is. And it's a 1080p display. So I imagine, especially with that Blu-ray disc player, this sold for quite a bit back in the day. I'm not really sure what the quality is like on these things. I don't have a lot of experience with Sony computers. I do remember the occasional Sony laptop when I first started working on computers back in the Windows 7 era and the Windows XP era. You would get those Sony Vaio computers, laptops every now and again, but not often. So I don't have a lot of experience with the Sony stuff. On the side here we have a nice array of ports. We have an express card, which that's really not used anymore. We have a magic gate, I don't even know what that is. SD, which is still used. Headphones, audio in, and then that might be a digital audio, I'm not sure. And then a USB. I don't know, it might not be digital audio because we have optical audio on the back here. On the back we have the connect button. I don't know what that is. And then that was a Sony video output, I believe, on their cameras. And then optical out, which I would imagine is for audio, and then an additional 2 USB ports. Over here we have the date of copyright of 2008, so it's got to be, well, I mean the Windows Vista sticker dates it pretty well. But this is getting old, and I cannot wait to see all the stupid moronic commentary that shows up on this video, stating that because this computer is old, it can no longer be used, even though that is just so far from the truth. On the other side, we have the CD/DVD drive. We have an additional 2 more USB ports, a wireless switch, HDMI selection, so this must be able to serve as a basic monitor as well, and then the menu buttons for adjusting the display properties. On the top we have 2 power buttons, one for the monitor itself and the other for the computer component. And then that is the motion eye switch, which appears to be some kind of a physical lever that might be to cover the Webra. Let's see. No, it moves the Webra. Moves the angle ever so slightly. So this is quite fully featured. I'm contemplating putting this in the kitchen on top of the refrigerator. I have the fan up there right now, but I've really never used that fan, and quite frankly it just serves no purpose, even though it looks cool. So I think having the computer might make more sense, because I have the audio equipment there, but there's nothing to play on it, because otherwise I have to always bring a laptop in, and then there's no data jack in there yet, so I have to download the music onto the laptop prior and then bring it in, and then it takes up counter space, and it's just not practical. So if I had a workstation there sitting on top of the refrigerator, it would solve all that problems. And then I could have videos too, because I spend a lot of time in the kitchen, you know, between cooking and cleanup It'd be nice to sometimes be able to have videos on. I'd never been much of a background video person, but you know, sometimes when I'm eating I like to play videos and so forth, so I could see using this for videos in the kitchen as well. I must have tested this at some point because it's labeled as good. I don't know what kind of testing that involved, how in-depth it was, etc. I don't really remember testing it, although I vaguely do recall powering this on at some point. I don't recall what the results were. So, I want to see if we can get in here and replace the hard drive and see what the memory is. If this is from Windows Vista, it's not going to have a lot of memory. I would imagine maybe 2 or 4 gigabytes at most. Because Windows Vista was largely 32 bits. Well, that came off very easily, but it really doesn't. I'm not sure it does much for me here. But now we have the informations, which reveal the sadness of the fact that this is made in China, not Japan, like some of the other Sony products were. This is the Sony personal computer model PCV-AF1L. Does not seem to have a date code on there. We have revealed more ports. Down here we have it looks like it probably has a tuner, and it has both a digital and an analog tuner, which is kind of interesting. And it also has HDMI input. So this really was ahead of its time in the 2000s to have both the digital tuner and HDMI input, because VGA was very much still the standard in the 2000s, DVI and VGA. So that's pretty cool to have that. And now on the other side, we have even more inputs. We have the network interface. We have an AV input, which looks to be, I'm not sure, I guess audio. And then video and infrared transmitter out. And then we have an additional, oh no, those are the regular ones. Okay, those are the ones from before. So we have a door over here, which I'm hoping is the memory. And then it says hard disk drive access bay. So despite being of the all-in-one design, it looks like this might be relatively serviceable. Normally I don't really get involved in these all-in-one computers because they're typically not designed very well in terms of serviceability, and I don't like that, so I typically stay away. But it looks like this one might not be too bad. So let's take this off. It seems a bit excessive to have all these screws here, but we'll get these off and let's see. I suspect it's going to take a 3.5-inch drive, but I'm going to replace it with a 2.5 SSD, because at this point, you know, SSDs are so cheap, I don't see why you would still use the rotating hard drive to host an operating system, unless it's something really old, you know, like Windows XP or something. But for anything that's relatively new, other than data storage, the SSD just makes the most sense. Alright, so now I guess looks like maybe this pulls up here. And there's the hard drive. That wasn't too bad. We got more screws, I think. Looks like maybe these 2 screws. looks like these will do it. And it is in fact a 3.5-inch drive. Wow, it's a whole terabyte too. This was a really souped up machine for what it was back in the day. A whole gigabyte. Wow. Well, that's 1249.4. I would imagine maybe this isn't the original drive then. I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna go grab the replacement drive that we're gonna put in. Here's the drive I'm going to install. This is a Samsung 256 gigabytes SS drive, and it too unfortunately was made in China, but hopefully it will still work. It's small, but I won't be storing any documents on this machine, so it's adequate. It is from March of 2013, so it's about 10 years old. So what we need to do now is we got to take this drive out and set up this new drive. I think this is just going to unscrew like this. I don't see a second thing like what Dell used or whatever to slip it in place. Toolless. Oh boy. This is a bit stripped, which would also indicate that it probably is not the original drive. I think this was like cross-threaded or something. Okay, so we'll take this and set this aside, and in this case we're just going to screw the SSD in like this, and it'll be kind of floating, but it'll be fine. These things weigh almost nothing, and there's no movement or vibration occurring, so it's not going to work its way out of there. Come on, goof. Are these screws the wrong size? These might be too big, I think. That's kind of queer. These not standard drive screws? It's always something, ain't it? These, the threads on these screws are not standard for a hard drive. At least not by today's standards, or by 2013 standards. But I think these will fit. Yeah, these are the right size. Well, here's what we're gonna do. We'll screw one of these screws into the drive, and we'll put the other screw back where it was. And oh no, it's going to be missing one screw. It might just fall into the computer. What are we ever going to do? I have more of these screws somewhere. I had a big box of them at the old location. I'm not sure if I ever brought it over or not. Alright, so the drive is there. It's, you know, floating, but it's good enough. It's going to stay in place. And quite frankly, these weigh so little, I think you could even go without screwing it in at all, and nothing would happen. Alright, let's slip this back into here. Plug this in. Now this drive has an installer of Windows 7 on here, which you can still use even though it's out of support, which is irrelevant because Microsoft support is absolutely useless anyways. And I started doing this a couple years ago. I made a bunch of images with these I made a bunch of images of various installers. So what I do is I started installing Windows on a computer, and then I just stopped it at a particular point where it doesn't matter if you stop it, and I saved the image and I can restore it to a drive like this, and it just saves the time, because now when I do the install, this actually just popped right out of there. Now when I do the install of I'm not making any sense. I'm tired. I should have done this video earlier in the day. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and put that screw out because it's not serving any purpose, and the drive can just float freely as it so desires to. I'm going to try to explain this again. The drive has an image that I saved of the Windows 7 installer interrupted at a particular point where you can stop it and save it, and so now I restore that image to this drive. So when I turn this computer on, it's just going to go right up to installing Windows 7. It doesn't have any of the updates or anything in there, but it saves me the trouble of having to create the bootable USB installer or run a CD, which takes a really long time, or a DVD I guess it would be for Windows 7. So it just saves a little bit of trouble. Not much, but I think it was worth it. It makes the setup quicker. Alright, so that's connected, and it's just going to float. You can get an adapter, a 3.5 to 2.5 adapter, but they're not cheap. They're like $8 or $10, I think. It's just not worth it. If this was a customer's machine, I wouldn't do this, but for my own personal use cases, I don't really care if it's like this. It's not going to bother me at all. Okay, so that's that. The drive is replaced. Now let's take a look and see if we can get into the memory, which I think might be the little slot we saw on the right side. Oh boy. Oh, for an all-in-one unit, this actually comes apart and goes back together pretty painlessly. Very unusual. At least by today's standards. You know, it seems like the year 2012 really changed the way a lot of these units were designed, and we kind of stopped seeing serviceable hardware around that year, which is unfortunate, because serviceable hardware is nice. Okay, so I think that the memory slot is over here. That it is. And we have 2 gigabytes of memory. And I don't have any of that on hand. 4 is enough for this use case anyways. All we're going to do is just maybe play a video or play music. We don't need more than 4 gigabytes. That's adequate. If it was 2, I would say we got to do something, but 4 is enough, especially with the SSD. It'll be fine. Okay, so that concludes that. Yeah, this is like magnetic, which is kind of interesting. It doesn't feel like it's going on right. I guess it's on okay. Is it? No, it's not on. Is it on right? I can't tell. It's on enough for me. You're not going to see the back of it anyways in this use case. Okay. Now let's turn this thing around and plug it in. Does this take a regular power cord? I certainly hope that it does. Let's see where the power input even is. Oh, it's over here. It is a standard power cord. I'm going to get the power cord, I'll plug it in so I can show the way the image on the drive works. This takes a standard AC cord, however it requires a right angle one because the case does not fit over the plug unless you have a right angle cord. I probably have some somewhere, but I think for now I'll just use it without the back. Got an old beat up worn out Dell L100 keyboard, still going because these just plain work, and got power hooked up. Let's plug this in and see what it does. Okay, we've got a bunch of cooling fans. The Sony logo has illuminated. Something just came on the screen, input PC. And there it goes, and it should come up and just start installing Windows. I gotta find a computer mouse. For some reason I can't find any computer mice down here. I don't know. It's all ridiculous. I must have a million mice in this house and I can't find a single one of them right now. Well, anyways, this will go through. It just takes a couple of minutes. So it's nothing earth-shattering, but it's an interesting process I discovered, and I think it's very helpful. So we'll let that boot up. I'll go through and start installing. Oh, I think that we're going to have some fun with the drivers, because I don't even know if Sony has a portion of their website where they offer drivers, so we're going to have some fun with the drivers, and then after that I'll come back on the video when I have it upstairs in place. Maybe the drivers won't be such a big deal. It already has even the Wi-Fi driver. Not that that's of much help to me, but maybe it won't be so bad. It also appears to have the display driver as well, as the image is not at all blurry. It is missing a few of the drivers, but the display driver is there, as it's already running the Aero theme. The audio driver is there, and the network driver is there as well. So this is probably stuff like the card reader and other items I won't use in this particular use case, but I'll still look around and see. It's possible some of those drivers will come in through Windows updates, and if they don't all come in, I'll see if I can find them, but if I can't, it's not a big deal. This is already working adequately out of the box, which is kind of unusual. It's now several days later. I have the software all set up and I was ready to put this computer into place. And then I realized that the whole project is a total fail. Not because anything went wrong or malfunctioned, just because I had a significant lack in foresight with the power button. Right, the power button is here on the top. Well, between the height of the refrigerator and the height of the amplifier, the power button ends up being unreachable. So this is not going to work here, and I'm going to have to devise something else, which, in all honesty, I'm not that upset about, because as I was using this machine during the setup process, I really kind of liked it. The display is super vibrant and really sharp, so I almost wanted to use it at a regular desk anyways, so I think now that's what I'll end up doing. And I'll have to figure out what I'm going to do over here instead.